Hello, greetings from Moberly Lake. I just going to start painting tonight, so I wanted to introduce it as a painting in a style that I learned from a fellow named Mike Svob. He is a really well-known artist, and he paints with bright colors. I think you guys are really going to like it. Just wanted to show you what I've done. I have taken the chalk and taken the picture, and I've drawn it onto the black canvas with the chalk. I've used a few guidelines. One thing to remember when you're drawing is to maybe just outline a bit of the shapes. I've maybe just take note of where the edge of the roof starts, and also the middle of the barn. It's about in the middle of the page, so I drew a line down here, and then I started to draw. And also then just make lines where, you know, your tractor starts in a line of the stack, which is right here. If you do this, you keep yourself on track with your drawing, and you keep it proportioned correctly. It doesn't have to be perfect, because it's just it's a study in color, and it doesn't have to, you know, the lines don't have to be exactly right, just as long as maybe the tractor and the barn look correct. Hello, class. Okay, we've got our picture that we're doing, and we have drawn it onto our black canvas, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this. In any good painting, you need to consider your values. Here is our value scale, and I mean, it can go on and on. You can have it goes from light, you know, to the dark, and a lot of paintings have many variations of the value scale. But for us, we're just going to worry about the three. We're going to have light, a medium, and dark. So in any good painting, or any painting that has that kind of pops, you're going to need to have a good distinction between these three values. What we're going to do today is we're going to start painting in the blue. The reason we painted this black, and this is very important, is that the black is already our darkest value. So we need to keep the black in. Be very careful not to paint over the black. Like up in here, we should leave some black. Here, under here, in here, we've got all these black lines, and that's what helps bring out our three values. So we want to make sure that we don't paint all the black in. So we're going to start today. We're going to mix some colors. I'm using phthalo blue. You can use cobalt blue, whatever you want. That's a little bit dark here. So we're going to mix some color. I actually want it a lot more white. That's way too dark still. Use a little bit of white here. And if you'd prefer to use cobalt blue, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. And nice thing about acrylics is that you can always paint over it. So I'm going to start. I'm actually going to save a bit of white as well. I might just want to apply just white. So we're going to start in here. We're going to start with the sky. You need a nice medium-sized brush. I never like to use little brushes in this style of painting. I may switch here. And that's just a little too blue, so I'm going to try and get it a bit more white. So we're going to, you might want to use thicker paint. Mine might be a little bit thin. We're going to paint in between the trees, leaving a lot of the black. And I like to use big strokes where I can. Gives it a nice painterly feel. And we're going to do this. You can add a little bit of blue in spots if you want to change, just to make it look like, you know, clouds and stuff, or a little variation there. And I'm going to let you complete this. And when you have put all the light colors in for the sky, the white and the blue, we will move on to the barn. There we go. Hello, so we're back. I was going to work on the barn, but I think since we've got our white out anyway, let's just continue on with the snow and making sure that we leave some black up here because we don't want to lose that line. That's an important line. This time we're going to try and maybe use just a little bit more white. You're going to need a bit of water. I didn't like the phthalo blue as much, so I added a little bit of actually ultramarine, and I like it much better. You can go over this several times, and the more you go over it, like if the paint is kind of thin and you can see the black, it's nice to paint that, get rid of the black in between the trees, so you can paint over it again. And like I say, if you don't like the colors, you just wait for it to dry and then change it up a little bit. So we're going to move on to the roof line here. And you want a little bit of blue in there. It shouldn't be just stark white, but making sure to keep this line black up here. I may want to use a smaller brush now. I would use this one here. Okay, and like I say, you may have to give this another coat after if you can see the black shining through or coming through. You want to make this stand out from the blue sky, so you have to make it fairly white. That's getting back to the value scale. You want to make sure that you've defined your darks and your lights, medium tones. Like I say, if you paint over this a little too much, you can always come back later with black. I'm going to make this a little bit more white so you can see it. And I see I'm doing that myself. I'm covering up some of the black, and I shouldn't be. I may add just a little bit of blue, because you know wouldn't be completely white. And we have a line coming down here. Whoops. And see, I've muddied up that color, so I need to make it lighter so you can see it. And then we'll move on down here a little bit to the snow on the tractor. And add a little bit of water if you like, make it a bit thinner. We will add all these color variations maybe just a little bit later. For now, we'll just put on some white color. You can keep the paint thick too if you like. That's always fun. So if you don't make this really white, it's going to blend into the background and you'll lose your value. So you need to make this part quite white so it stands out. I like to use thick paint. It gives it a nice texture. Make sure you keep your lines, know where you're painting so you don't lose the snow and paint part of the tire. And this comes down like this if you lose the reference picture. I'll continue on with painting the snow here. I'll give this to Steve. Okay, I'm going to make sure this is quite white in here so we can have a nice value contrast there. I've carried on a little bit here. And like I say, if you can see the black through your painting, just put some more coats on it, and that should fix that problem. Okay, so what I want to do here is add a little bit of color. Have quite a bit of shadow in here. And just leave a little bit of black in spots. And if you want, you can drag your paint brush over to leave a little bit of texture like this. It just gives it, you know, sort of a really neat look. I'm not really liking the way this is looking, so I'm going to change it just a bit. Add a little bit of shadow in here to give it a bit of interest. Okay. Hello again. So I am all done painting the snow, and this comes the fun part because we get to add the red, and this is what makes this picture really pop. We are going to start by mixing some red and yellow together, and you want to have some white ready too. Get a nice red that you really like, and like I say, if you don't like it, you can always change it. We want to be careful though when we're painting. We have to leave this black around the stack or we're going to lose it. And we need to leave the black in between the lines to show the barnwood. And of course this part here is just a little bit darker. So we want a shade underneath on the eaves there. Okay, let's get started. You might want to just use straight red paint too if you like. So we're gonna start by painting this. I think might be a little dark. Okay, so we're gonna start by painting in between the boards, making sure we leave the black or we're gonna lose our lines there. And then we want to make sure when we're doing our stack, we should do that first, but make sure you leave black around it. I might use some straight on red here in some of the places gives it an interesting look. You can experiment with it. There's really no rules here, except leaving the black. And see how that pops next to the tractor? It's so pretty. It's very engaging. You might add a little bit of yellow. Complement blue and purple. It's always interesting. You can do these lines like that too, like I've done here, to make it look like weathered wood. And see, I've lost a bit of my black here. I'm gonna have to, it's very important not to do what I just did. Gotta make sure you keep that black in there. And the red, if you want a little bit brighter, it does make it brighter if you use straight on red here. Like I say, barnwood is rarely ever its variation of colors, so you can add different varieties of red. You can lighten it, you can add yellow, a little bit of white. And then we want to do up here, so it's a little bit darker. I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of blue, because that to the red. That'll give you your shade. And we can do that in here. Hello again. We've just finished up. I've just finished up this painting, added the snow. It's maybe not as bright as my original painting, but it can always be fixed up later. Now I'm going to let it dry, and then when it dries, we're going to take a damp cloth and we're going to take out all the chalk lines. So when you're at this point, make sure that it's completely dry before you do that. And then we will look at it one last time and maybe fix up any little minor changes that we need to make. Here we are, we've completed our painting, and this is the final video that I'll post. What we need to do now, when we're done our painting, is we need to take a damp cloth and we're going to wipe up all the chalk lines. Just make sure your painting is dry and see how that makes this picture pop. Okay, my paint's a little bit wet down here. You might want to wait for a while to do this, and then this all pops out as well. So all you have left are the chalk lines are gone, and then you have your painting just sort of starts to come alive. There, and there's your painting. When you are finished doing that, you may want to decide that there's some things that you don't like about it, you want to fix. If you've lost some of the tree lines, you can just take a little bit of black and add them in. If you've lost some lines around the barn or the tractor, you can also add those in. If you need to brighten it up a little bit, you can just continue working on it. Just make sure that you don't lose your black in here, otherwise your picture will lose its definition. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the class, and maybe we'll do another one. We'll see how it goes. We will talk to you later. Thank you everyone for joining.